Now to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata joining us from Washington. You've spent a lot of time in that region, most recently in Puerto Rico, talking about that military buildup. The president threatening to strike drug traffickers on land in Latin America. Walk us through the dynamics, especially the military positioning in that region.
Yeah, Reed, it would be described as an array of options in that region. What we saw for ourselves in Puerto Rico is a squadron of 10 F-35 stealth fighter jets. There were Reaper drones with Hellfire missiles thought to be used in some of those boat strikes. That in itself gives the president options. But then when you add, I think there are 10 or 11 destroyers or cruisers that all have a launch capability of hundreds of Tomahawk cruise missiles. And again, that wouldn't put any pilots at risk if they were to launch Tomahawk cruise missiles into Venezuela. As the president has said repeatedly, they already have their targets in place, their strike package, if you will. So between the cruisers, the destroyers, the F-35s, then let's add the Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier with 4 squadrons of F-18 fighter jets, an additional squadron of F-18s that are electronic warfare, so to scramble radar, et cetera, and help with communication. So it's about as forward postured as the U.S. military can get, especially having that aircraft carrier in the region. However, we can also report that it is currently in dock. It's at port in St. Thomas. So again, it's not necessarily needed. He's got plenty, when I say he, the president has plenty of options in which to launch land strikes if he decides to go ahead and follow through on those threats.
Okay, so Secretary Pete Hegseth also in the headlines for something we've talked about a lot here on CBS News 24/7, that so-called signal gate. We understand the Pentagon has a report on that. And of course, to catch our viewers up, that is the allegation that Pete Hegseth was in a chat talking about strikes, which accidentally involved and included a journalist there. How transparent is that report expected to be?
That is a great question, Reed, and I wish I had the answer for you. But I can frame it as to how the genesis and how this investigation took place. Because as you said, we're talking about 8 months of this investigation, and it has been conducted by the Pentagon's own Inspector General. So it should be a sort of cold light of day in looking at exactly what happened. And what you referred to is when Secretary Hegseth shared information that fighter jets were right off the deck and headed for targets, Houthi targets in Yemen. So it was the timing of that information and the fact that it was happening as these aircraft were going out that potentially put U.S. pilots in jeopardy. And I just want to quote, because when the request first went in, because this is critical here, they want an assessment of whether any individuals transferred classified information, including operational details, from a classified system into an unclassified system, and if so, how? Because that is at the nub of all of this. Because Secretary Hegseth continues to say, I'm the Secretary of Defense. I can decide what's classified and what's not classified. But there is a process where you sort of declassify information and put it on an insecure or unsecured system like Signal. So that is really at the heart of this as to who did what and when, and who is the decision maker to share that information at that critical time.
Right, and Pete Hegseth continues to say he did nothing wrong. Charlie D'Agata, always great to talk to you. Have a good day, friend.